Testing, testing, testing. Andy Ferguson. Andy Ferguson. Brother Mark, are we on or off? If we're live streaming, we'll just be a couple of minutes, okay? But we want to welcome everyone from across the state or wherever you're tuning in from. Brother Staten's going to be doing a leadership program here tonight and tomorrow at 10:30. So you're welcome to tune in and hear what he's got to say about leadership. We're excited about it and hope you follow it. And also it will be archived, so if any of your churches miss it, you can go back and look at our archives at gcupc.com. All righty, we'll just be going in just a minute. Andy Ferguson. Brother Mark, are we on or off?
I will try. I will end on time, if nothing else. All right. Well, thank you all for the opportunity to be here. And the food was amazing. There's some peanut butter fudge, I think, still in there. I avoided temptation. I don't know if I will be able to after we're done, but that's going to be my treat if I do good. So y'all tell me I do good so I can have some peanut butter fudge. My wife was going to be with me, and we had just a crazy week, topped off by our freezer and refrigerator going out of business, which, anyway, you might have been through something similar, and you know how all the fallout of that can be. So she is home taking care of that, and we've got 4 daughters, so you can imagine what the fallout of that can be. So anyway, just a lot that she's dealing with. So I'm going to talk about leadership while she's doing leadership. So that's our partnership. She's at home doing leadership, and tonight I'm going to talk to us about it. Again, honor to be with you guys. The last time I was here, I don't know, 5 years ago or so, you all were still in the old building, and I think Brother Ferguson had brought me up here just to walk around there. I think there were bats somewhere around where we're standing right now, above us. Yeah, it was. I remember him telling me how all it was going to be, and in my mind I was thinking, okay, you got good dreams. But wow, it looks amazing. So congratulations on that. And looking forward to being with you. I will go ahead and get into, we're going to do a couple of sessions tonight. And then tomorrow, so my wife is actively right now getting the refrigerator and freezer fixed. If she has a session that she's going to do with you all through Zoom. If she can't get on tonight, tomorrow she's going to get on and do that. Her session is way more fun than mine. And it's a really neat kind of interactive deal. So let's start with the first lesson. I want to talk to us, first of all, about effective communication. All right, and I am not coming from a know-it-all standpoint. These are just principles. I love leadership. My wife gets mad at me because when I travel, I listen to John Maxwell Audible books, and for Christmas, I want leadership books. She gets a little mad at me about that. But so leadership is a hobby. I love it. I love working with. Okay, I'm in a church right now. Be careful. Most of the time, I love working with people. I was getting ready to say something. I didn't want God to strike me dead. Sometimes, obviously, there can be challenges to that. But one of the most important elements of leadership is communication. In fact, probably the most important element of any relationship is communication. If communication breaks down, the relationship is in trouble. I'm going to share kind of a humorous, at least I think it's funny. If you want me to eat peanut butter fudge, laugh after I tell this story. If you don't, then don't laugh, and I'll be feeling sorry for myself, and then I won't reward myself with peanut butter fudge. So there was a couple from Minneapolis who wanted to celebrate their 20th wedding anniversary by getting down to Florida. Probably Disney World is where they were going. And they planned to spend their trip in the same hotel where they had stayed during their honeymoon. Unfortunately, because of their busy schedules, they had to book separate flights. The husband's flight was going to leave on Thursday, and his wife would leave the following day. Traveling together would have been preferable, but this was the best way they could do it. So after he got checked into his room, now this is years ago with technology, so you have to use a little imagination to make this story work. But the husband decided to go down to the lobby and send an email to his wife, who he knew would want to know he had arrived safe and sound. Unfortunately, he mistyped one letter in her email, and it sent to another email address. Rather than his wife getting it, it was a widow in Houston, Texas, who had just returned to her house after her husband's funeral. So the widow sat down to her computer expecting emails from relatives and well-wishers, but she never made it past the first message on her screen when she screamed and fainted. Her son rushed over to see what had happened. After checking on her, he noticed the email, and here's what the email said. To my loving wife, subject, I've arrived. I know that you must be surprised to hear from me. Believe me, I was surprised to be able to reach you too. Luckily, they have computers here now, and you're allowed to send emails to your loved ones. I've just arrived and have checked in. I see that everything has been prepared for your arrival tomorrow. Looking forward to seeing you then. We're going to have a great time. Hope your journey is as uneventful as mine was. P.S. Sure is hot down here. So, obviously, that's a humorous story, but it emphasizes the importance of proper communication. A team can be effective only if it has effective and efficient communication. The members of a successful team are constantly communicating with one another. Sometimes that's body language, all right, but it could be text messages, emails. There's a variety of different ways that we're going to tonight and tomorrow talk about. Communication fuels dedication and relationships. Dedication and relationships, on the outflow of that is action. All right, so it begins with communication and it leads to the action. So in order for our teams to operate on a superior plane, team members must communicate with one another. On the flip side of that, poor communication always leads to frustration. Right? Action comes to a standstill because nobody knows what's going on. People duplicate each other's responsibilities, and or maybe something's not getting done because somebody thinks somebody else is going to do it, and nobody actually does it. All right, and organizations, departments begin to clash because we feel like we're being undermined by one another. So the lack of communication is devastating to an organization. So here's a few keys to effective communication. All right. I don't know if did my slides get to you? Okay, if not, it's not. I think we'll still be able to make it if you can't get them. All right. First point is communicate with certainty. All right, when we're leading, and I think in the room tonight are kind of the top tier in the org chart. I think, is that correct? All right, you're the leaders of leaders here at the church. And when we're leading people, communicating with certainty is a necessity. All right. In fact, I would say this: even it's a necessity to be certain, even when you're uncertain. Here's what I mean by that: if you're not sure, you need to communicate that. All right. I don't know is better than acting like you know. All right. So communicate with certainty. Once you make up your mind about something, stick to it. All right. Waffling creates wondering. Right? When we as the leader are uncertain, we're not sure, we don't have confidence in our decision, all right, that creates uncertainty and confusion in those that we're leading. And we earn the respect of others when our message remains consistent. When we make a decision, right? The last 2 years have been decision-making lake of fire, we'll say that, all right? There's so many decisions we've had to make in the middle of COVID, and it's just, there is no right decision. It just feels like everything's a wrong decision. You just keep trying to, but remaining certain, because people find confidence in that. And people are looking for confident leaders in this hour that we're in, not just in the church, but our world is looking for leaders that can just say, we're going that direction, let's go. All right, so first of all, is communicate with certainty. Secondly, communicate with clarity. Communicate with clarity. Those that we're leading as well as those that we're working with. need to know what we want. So being direct and honest with our team members in order to win them over. So clarity and communication is not just about saying the right thing, it's also about using the right medium. Right? Dealing with, I'm not a big conflict guy. I don't like conflict. Most of that I delegate to my wife. I'm kidding. But she does. She loves conflict. Really, she does. If she were here right now, she'd admit that. So if I can let her deal with it, most of the time I do, and she handles it better. Anyway, I'm kind of joking there, kind of not. But I'll let you decide how much. But it's not just, if we're going to correct something, doing that through text messages, I would love that. Right? The part of me that doesn't like conflict, I would love to just send a text message and deal with that problem. But I know that's not the right medium to deal with a real issue. All right? Some issues, phone calls aren't the right thing. Some they are. So it's not just saying the right things, it's also using the right means of communication to deal with things. Sending out an email to correct somebody is probably not the right way to do it. All right? So confronting a behavioral issue through email or text message, it is the easy way out, but it's likely the wrong way out. Next is communicate with courtesy. Every person, especially in the church, every person deserves to be treated with respect. Right? No matter their title or the history between you, no matter, it doesn't, well, I'm going to treat Pastor Grizzle with respect, and you should. But you should also treat Sister Susie with respect. All right? We can handle hard issues and still respect one another. All right? So when you're polite to your team members, you send a message to the entire organization. Even the way we talk to one another, people are watching us to see how we're handling conflict. Fourth is communicate by connecting. And connecting is the ability to identify with people and relate with them in a way that increases your influence with them. And in order to truly connect with others, we must build rapport with them. All right, building rapport with them. Now, some are introverts and others are extroverts. Some like to be around people. Some, as soon as service is over, they want to get out of there. Whatever it is, though, you still have to find a way to build rapport with people. You have to find a way to connect with people. The only time you're talking to people is when you want something from them. They don't trust you. All right, so here's a kind of plays into that today. On my way here, right, the refrigerator and the freezer breaking down wasn't enough, but my church secretary called me about 2 hours into my trip and said, Pastor, I just got a strange phone call. I said, all right, I'm assuming you're not, you're calling me for a reason other than to tell me you have a strange phone call. She said, yes, a lady that I know from the community called me and said, hey, our church that I'm a part of, we're wanting to buy a new building, and I saw that your church is for sale. And I did not know that. My church secretary didn't know that. And so she went on to tell me the rest of the story, that our church next Friday was scheduled to be put up for auction. I had no idea of that. My church secretary had no idea of that. Apparently, I think we own 40 acres of property, and I believe the area of our property that we have not developed, we still have to pay taxes on. I think is how that works. It's not a lot, but it is an amount of money. Well, I guess 2020 and 2021, we didn't pay that amount of money. I think it's about $1,000. But the county government sent us an invoice to our old building, which that's on them, I think. But they didn't get a response. It got sent back to them. Well, they didn't even try to reach out to us, right? 2 years. So all we needed to pay was $900. But if we hadn't learned this today, I don't know what would have happened. I guess next Friday our building would have been sold. I don't know. I'm thank God that person called today and took care of that. But in my way of thinking, I'm like, couldn't they have, maybe gone another step further to try and reach and connect with us? I mean, you're talking about selling somebody's building out from under them. I would think maybe, look in your records and see if they have another address or maybe a phone number you could try to call. But in my opinion, that's poor. They didn't connect with us. Their communication broke down. That could have been a huge issue. Thank God he helped us out with that one. Next is communicate by considering or with consideration. And I think a trap that we can fall into as leaders is we know the right way. And because we know the right way, we don't listen to other people. We don't give them an opportunity to speak. We don't, I think it's a tendency, all right? I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I think it's a weakness in leadership. It can be that we're not open to hear what other people say. But the problem is, if people don't have a voice in the process, that doesn't mean we always use their decisions, but if they don't have a voice in the process, they don't have buy-in to the process. And so giving consideration, letting them talk, listening to what they have to say, all right, being considerate of their point of view is essential in communication. All right, so here's some ways that we can improve our communication. These can apply in your marriage. All right, in fact, I think my wife taught me these. So the first one is learn, be a good learner. Not really. First one is don't interrupt. All right, the best thing we can do in improving our communication is don't interrupt. It's important to give people time to express themselves. And it's even okay for a period of silence. It's okay for there to be silence. Sometimes it means people are thinking. All right, don't be afraid of silence. You ever met that person who finishes sentences? And maybe you're here tonight, I don't know. So if you are, the Holy Ghost is, right? Every time, like you get halfway through and they're finishing your sentence for you. They're helping you with that next word that you were ready to say, but they just helped you out anyway and finished that for you. All right? If that's your tendency, what's that? All right, we'll try to boost you back up before we're done. All right, but, you know, we all can do these things, but I think being intentional, that I want to be better at this. I want to be I think the biggest part of communication where people fail is listening. We can be really good at talking, but listening is the one that I think a lot of people don't do too well. All right, so first of all, and being intentional. So, you know, I'm not going to interrupt. I'm going to if it's awkward, if we're standing there staring at each other for 15 seconds, it's just going to have to be awkward because I'm not going to interrupt. I'm going to let you finish what you had to say. All right, secondly is focus on understanding. All right, the best listeners aren't those that can remember every fact about what was said. If that's true, I'm a terrible listener because my memory is terrible. The best listeners are the best listeners because they understand the intent of what was said. They understand the purpose of what was said. They get the emotion behind it. All right, they get what's important, if I could say it that way. Stephen Covey made the statement, seek first to understand and then to be understood. If we could go into our leadership conversations with that in mind, if nothing else, I want to come out of this conversation, I want to understand. All right. How many of you leaders deal with difficult people from time to time? You have difficult conversations. If you don't, then you're probably not leading. All right, we do. We have difficult people. I'm dealing with a situation at home right now, a very difficult situation. Right, a guy who wants to be on the praise team, but he's not real committed in his walk with God, but it's kind of like we're picking on him because we won't let him sing on Sunday, and trying to unravel that because that ties in family dynamics because he's related to a good portion of the church, and now you're picking on our, you know what I mean, and dealing with all that. And on the way here, praying, God, help me to try to see things from his, doesn't mean I'm going to take his side in it, but help me to step back for a minute and understand where he's coming from. All right, because what I want to do is just call my wife and tell her to go take care of it. No, what I want to do is, you know, let him know what's up. But God, help me to step back and focus on understanding. All right, thirdly is determine the need. People talk for many different reasons. And oftentimes, the reasons are different than what we expect. That's why it's important to understand the current need of the speaker. And putting the conversation into that context will help us fully engage as the listener. Here's an important one. Fourth, check your emotions. Once emotion gets involved in a conversation, who knows where it's going to end up? All right? So, like baggage at an airport, when it comes to listening, your emotions will slow you down in getting to into your destination. So it's important that we check our emotions, right? Just like you would do for your suitcase. Check the bag, pick it up after the conversation is over. Try to keep the emotion out of it, especially, again, if you're dealing with a difficult relationship or a difficult situation. Try to check your emotions. 5 is suspend your judgment. All right? Anybody ever jump to a conclusion? right? You jumped to a conclusion and you went right in for the kill, and then you realize you were wrong. That's a tough one to walk back. All right, so suspend your judgment. You cannot be a good listener and jump to conclusions at the same time. So do your best to wait to hear the other person's full story. All right? 6 is sum up at major intervals. And to me, this is one I'm working on, that even in my relationship with my wife, because I have a tendency to drift a little bit. I don't know if that's a male tendency or just my tendency, but I have a tendency to drift, right? She's talking, I'm listening, the next thing I know I'm not listening, and then she quizzes me on it, and then I'm in trouble because I'm trying to make up, and she's like, no, that's not what I said at all. So I'm trying to do better at this one, and simply what I'm saying, what this means is at major intervals say, this is what you just said to me. All right, if I do that, one, it lets her know that I heard what she said, and I can even get some brownie points out of it, but it forces me to focus on what she's saying. All right, 7 is ask questions for clarity. 6? Sister Ferguson feels like the Holy Ghost is trying to move. Sorry, Andy. All right. Seven, I'm going to keep moving. I feel like I'm wading into something here. Ask questions for clarity. This is another one that lets people know you're listening when you ask a question. So is this what you mean? Or so you wanted me to go get our daughter from school at what time? That lets her know I'm listening, because there's been more than one time that later, hey, did you get? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't know I was supposed to. All right, because again, I was drifting when I should have been listening. But ask questions for clarity. All right, and then number 8, the last one, is always make listening your priority. All right, make listening our priority. There's a story of Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart, kind of at the apex of his career as the founder. And the story says that Walton was flying his plane into Mount Pleasant, Texas, and decided to land 100 miles away from his destination just so he could spend an hour, that extra time, riding with the Walmart truck driver to listen to the driver, to get perspective from somebody else in the organization. All right, somebody like Sam Walton, who probably makes more money than at least most of us in this building. If not you, definitely makes more than me. Busy man, but he said, I want to get perspective, and so he made time. He made listening his priority. And when people know that we listen, even if we don't, I can't take every idea that's given to me. I'm not going to always do what they want me to do. At the end of the day, another part of leading is making decisions. And sometimes I may not make the decision you want me to make, but if you know that I hear you, that gains us so much trust. It gains us so much equity with those that we're leading when they know that we hear them. All right, so these are just some simple steps that I think can be added. And maybe, like I said, for me, which one was it? I said focus on understanding, I think, and then summing up at major intervals. Those are ones that I am 2022. Those are mine. Those are the ones that I'm working on. But maybe there's a different one in there. Maybe you do have a tendency to cut people off and finish their sentences for them. All right? And maybe if you're in a relationship and your spouse, maybe they appreciate that, but maybe there's other relationships that don't appreciate that, right? I think, isn't it Frozen where they finish each other's sandwiches? Anyway. All right. Anyway, the rest of you are like, what are they talking about? Our families have a Disney connection. So, all right. I want to just kind of segue into maybe a mini portion underneath of this that I think deals with communication specifically within the organization. The first area that I want to talk about is communicating down. All right. So communicating to those that we lead. Right, when we're communicating down, here are the things that we're communicating that communicate downward. First of all, vision, mission, goals, values, and purpose. Those are things that get communicated downward in an organization. All right? We're communicating values. Right? The values of our organization, the values of this church have to come from Pastor Grizzle. They have to. All right, some of that, it may not be that he gets up every service and probably doesn't and says, here's our values. It's things that he's instilled in this church over time, but they have to come from him. All right, and then they filter down through you all, the leaders of the church. Next is communicate expectations. We communicate expectations down. All right, what's expected? And clearly communicated expectations become the basis from which we can hold others accountable. I think tomorrow I'm going to talk a little bit more about expectations. But the truth is, we don't have a right to hold people accountable to things we haven't clearly told them we expect them to do. All right? I don't know, this doesn't always apply in marriage, right? My wife is like, you didn't take the trash out. I'm like, you didn't tell me to. Well, you should have known. That's your role in this house. So there's some things that are just understood in a marriage. But in leadership, we can't expect things of people. We can't hold people accountable for things we haven't clearly communicated them. Anyway, so in that particular situation, I want to try to put some of these things into a practical application. The young man, wants to be on the praise team, comes into, prayer 30 minutes late and leaves 30 minutes early. But in my mind, I'm asking, did I clearly communicate what's expected of him? Because if I didn't clearly communicate now I think I did, but I want to make sure of that, because we're going to have a tough conversation, and I got to make sure I have, and that's what clearly communicating expectations does. It gives you a ground to stand on when you need to deal with something. We need to hold people accountable. All right? And here's another very important one, and that is communicate recognition. Because I know a lot of great leaders who do all the other ones really well, right? They communicate vision, they communicate values, they communicate expectation, but they don't recognize people. They don't say thank you, right? They don't do things to help, to let the people that are doing the work know, thank you for what you do. And I think we can all do better at this. But here's a good story that I'll share with you real quick. So I'll cut it because I know I do want to try to stay somewhat on time. The guy was out on the bass boat fishing. Any fishermen here? All right, 1, 2, a little bit. All right. Well, he was out on the bass boat fishing, had a Dr. Pepper, was kind of chilling, and all of a sudden he sees a water snake come slithering up on the water with a frog in his mouth. And, the fish aren't biting, so he's got a few minutes, so he starts feeling sorry for the frog. So as the snake gets closer, he real quick reaches over and gets the snake behind the head, lifts it up, and kind of pries his mouth open, takes the frog out, and, lets the frog go loose. The frog swims off. It's still alive. And then he's thinking, he gets to, snake starts to slither off, but it's still close to the boat. And then he gets to feeling, man, I just robbed this snake of a meal. And so he picks the snake up again and pours some Dr. Pepper in his mouth. Well, the snake goes slithering off. A few moments later, he looks down, and there comes the snake again with 2 frogs in his mouth. All right, we have to be careful what we reward. All right, we got to reward the right things, because obviously in that situation, if it's me, I'm not touching a snake to begin with. I don't know if snakes like Dr. Pepper. The principle is that snake said, I'm being rewarded for bringing a frog to you, so now he's bringing 2 back. So we have to be careful. We have to reward the right things, because the statement, they tell us that, what is rewarded is going to get repeated. All right? Communicating up. All right? We communicate up as well. We don't just communicate down, but we also have to communicate up. And the first thing that we need to communicate up is communicate understanding. All right? In other words, I understand. Pastor, when you shared the vision with me, I got it. All right? And again, some of that is summarizing, repeating back. This is what I understood you were saying to me. All right? Communicate understanding, a vision, and expectations. I think, for example, when I keep going back to that situation because it's fresh with me, but I think it's applicable. When I meet with that young man, then here's what we're going to do. We're going to give him another try here in the future. And what I'm going to say is, here's the expectations. Now I want you to repeat back to me what you understand I'm saying is expected of you. Because I don't want there to be any ambiguity, because the devil gets into ambiguity. People get offended. Here's my thing. I don't want that young man to go to hell. All right, so I don't want there to be any ambiguity. If he goes to hell, I don't want it to be because I didn't communicate properly. All right? Ways that we can communicate understanding. Again, respond with a summary of main points. Reply with a checklist of expectations. All right? The next thing that we need to communicate up is communicate needs. I know many times the people that I'm leading, I'm asking them to be Jesus almost. I'm asking them to turn water into wine. I don't know it, right? I say to my tech team, hey, I need this video by this time tomorrow. And they're like, I can't do that. So I don't know. I just know I saw a video last week. Somebody must have the ability to do it. But I don't really, sometimes I'm asking things of them that aren't realistic. And so when we're communicating up, we need to be able to communicate needs. Here's things that in order to be able to do what you've asked me to do, here are the things that I need. All right, because it's not realistic for us to ask people to do things without giving them the resources that they need to do it. Communicate progress. When we're communicating up, another important thing that needs to be communicated is progress. How are you coming along in what you've been asked to do? All right, how are things going in the department that you're leading? All right, how are things progressing in the area that you've been, right? The story of the stewards, the master comes back and he checks in with him. How are things going? And the one, the one says, well, I doubled it. The other one, I doubled mine. And then the other guy buried it. All right. We need to communicate progress. How are things going? And then lastly is communicate appreciation. All right. So yes, as leaders, when we communicate down, we need to communicate recognition. But the other part of that, to keep the flow of it going, is I need to communicate to those that are leading me appreciation. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to lead in this area. Thank you for allowing me, delegating your burden to me to allow me to be a part of what you're doing. All right, and when you have both going, all right, how good is it in a relationship, even in our marriage, when we're both saying kind things to one another, right? The relationship gets healthier. And so when recognition is being communicated down and appreciation is being communicated up, you've got a healthy relationship. And then, as pertains to everybody in this room who are maybe on the same level in the org chart with the exception of your pastor, this was very important. That is communicating across. This is our peer communication. All right? And the first thing that we need to be able to communicate to one another is intent. All right? We need to communicate intent. Anybody ever pulled up to a four-way stop and you all get there at the same time? And like nobody knows who's going to go? Well, everybody's waving at each other finally. Well, if somebody doesn't communicate properly, there's going to be a collision in the middle of that intersection. And when we're on the team, we have to be able to communicate intent. All right, every successful play starts with a plan. All right, sports, you look at any sport, whether it's football, soccer, it doesn't matter. They start out with a plan. They're communicating intention. All right, if they go out there on the football field and they just say, well, you just run wherever you want to, I'll throw it to somebody. You're going to have people running into each other. Nobody's going to get open. You've set up to fail before you ever started. So you have to communicate intent. All right. Secondly, is communicate ideas. Ideas, bringing a team together to brainstorm problems and possibilities leads to better solutions. I love team environments. I love, if I have something we're going through in the church, we want to do it better. I don't do that on my own. I bring our whole team in and I want to throw it out there on the table because I know this. We're going to come up with a better idea if everybody gives a little bit of input than if it was just me trying to think of. I'm not creative. All right, my creativity comes from allowing creative people to be around me. And when I can get the input of other people, the idea is always going to be better when we get more people involved. So here are the benefits of this peer-to-peer communication. First of all, coordinating activities. All right, we're able to coordinate activities when we know the intention. All right, how could that apply in here? Well, obviously tonight it was somehow communicated that there's going to be this training going on in here. All right, so that some other group, let's say the youth, we're going to say, well, we're going to have a prayer meeting in the sanctuary. Well, there would have been conflict there because there wasn't intent communicated, right? Too many people trying to use the same resource at the same time. So communicating intent. Now, I know that doesn't happen in Gate City, but I can't tell you how many times where I pastor in Lexington Park that I've gotten a phone call that two groups of people have showed up to use the same exact space. Not so much anymore because we've worked on it, but it used to be. Our old building, we had a sanctuary and one classroom. That's it. That's all we had. And so we had to split it among everybody. And more than once, we had 3 different groups of people show up to use that one classroom because intent had not been communicated. All right, it improves problem-solving skills. It decreases misunderstandings. Again, that probably doesn't happen in Gate City. No misunderstandings here. Promotes teamwork. And increases job satisfaction. I don't know about you all, but I want to enjoy ministry as much as I can. I want to enjoy. I know it's work. I know it's take up your cross. I know that. But I think there are things that we can do in our communication that make ministry more enjoyable. All right, something that we don't dread. Amen. I told I'd call it our executive leadership team, which would probably be similar to what's in this room and the others that maybe are joining us online, I think, tonight because they got the yuck, right? So they couldn't be here tonight. But I told them, look, I want to enjoy my interactions with this team. And so we're going to work hard to communicate effectively with one another. All right, I'm going to do my best to recognize you, and I expect in turn, right, if you need something from me, communicate that, because I don't want you to dread when I walk in the room, and I don't want to dread when you walk in the room. And communication is key to making sure that we look forward to seeing one another and not dread seeing one another. All right, are there any questions about communication? Anything you guys want to talk about? Anything you'd like to throw out there? Anything, Brother Andy, over there? Sister Heather got a jab in earlier. You got one back? He's good. Smart man. He said, I'm good. He said, she's perfect. All right. All right. I'm going to check real quick and see if my wife is able to jump in and do her session. If not, I'll just flow into delegation. All right. We'll get her tomorrow, all right? So a big part of communication is delegation. Are we good to just flow right into it, or do you guys want to take a quick break? Everybody good? All right. All right, let's talk about delegation, because I think delegation flows out of it's kind of an extension of communication, but it's a specific form of communication. All right, first of all, the benefits of delegation done right. Organizations benefit from delegation done right. Here's to me, the number one benefit of delegation done right for an organization is more people are empowered. All right, could I do everything myself as a pastor? Yeah. Well, no. I could try, right? If the music now, Andy and Heather could, they probably could do it all. Their talents, they're one of them 10 talent people. I'm one of them 1 talent guys that needs to get a bunch of 10 talents around me. I can't sing. I don't play. All right, I preach once in a while. I can hit that one. I can hit that note from time to time. But if I tried to do it all myself, 1, there's only so much I can handle. And 2, the organization will not flourish. And so first of all, more people are empowered. Secondly, productivity increases. All right, 10 people working on something is always going to do it more effectively than 1 person working on it. All right, successors are already developed and trained to move into new roles, making succession planning smoother. All right, a pipeline of ministry. And you'd be surprised. I know here at Gate City, I saw a video of Avery on Second Keys. How old's Avery? 9. And that's not just Avery. I remember from years ago when I was here, your children are involved in ministry. That's not an accident. That's intentional here, because there's a pipeline of ministry that you'd be surprised how many churches don't have a pipeline of ministry. They're not even thinking about it, right? Because one day they got to a place where they thought, man, we are there. We've arrived. And they stopped developing people, and now they're stuck. And there's no growth atmosphere. And so delegation allows to make sure, hey, when so-and-so moves away, or when, something happens, it's okay, because we've been developing somebody, and the kingdom, that's really what the kingdom doesn't need to suffer, because we've been developing people and delegating. All right, single points of failure are removed. And I'll talk about that tomorrow a little bit more. Team members benefit. Secondly, team members benefit from delegation done right. All right, first of all, there's ownership. The more people you get involved, the more ownership they're going to have. Their skills are developed. Advancement and promotion is part of a strategic plan rather than forced and uncertain. And then lastly, leaders benefit. All right, you and I that lead the church, we benefit when delegation, again, done right. All right, when delegation is done right. That's all right. I like it. The mood is getting more intense now. All right, so we're rewarded with more time for strategic thinking. When I can delegate somebody taking out the trash, right? I'm talking in the church now. When I can delegate somebody cleaning my office, it's not that I'm above doing that. It's that it frees me up to do things that only I can do for the church. And it gives somebody else opportunity to buy into things that they can do for the church. All right, more time to focus on tasks that only they can accomplish. And here's another key. When absent, work is still getting done. That's a huge key. All right, there's so many organizations, churches, that when a musician or a leader of whatever it might be is gone, nobody knows what to do. All right, they're viewed by the employee as a leader that trusts and can be trusted. When I'm delegating and I'm giving, again, if all you do is give people like little responsibilities, like take out the trash for me, that's not probably going to give you too much trust equity. But when you're giving people important things to do, like, hey, tomorrow, Sunday, I want you to start service off by making the announcements. People feel trusted. They feel valued. They feel like they're a part of what's going on in the church. So here are some steps. Step one to delegation done right, is determine what should I delegate. What should I delegate? And here's some things that we can delegate. First of all, we can delegate tasks that need to be completed. Again, menial tasks that others can respond to. Urgent tasks that I can't get to. All right, within your team that you lead, within your department, there are going to be tasks that you can't get to, or things that other people can respond to. Tedious tasks that my time is better served elsewhere. Last week I was driving the church van, and I noticed it needed to be vacuumed. And I was going to do it. Again, it's not that I'm above doing that. There are many times I will do it, and our family cleans the church. I believe in serving, but there were so many other things that I needed to do, so I called my youth pastor and helped him to get his blessing and said, Josh, I need you to go vacuum the van out. Right? Helped him to get his blessing. All right. Next, teams that are ready for expansion. All right. Delegated authority is the key to organizational expansion. When we want something to get bigger, to grow and have a bigger impact, how do we do that? By delegating. All right. In Exodus, Jethro approaches Moses, who all day is sitting before the people. And Jethro's question, listen, to me this stands out so much, because Jethro's question to Moses is, what is this that you do to the people? It wasn't just, Moses, that you're killing yourself. He was saying, you are robbing the people. The people are having to stand there all day. All right, the people are not getting what they need. All right, if you want to be more effective and reach more people, the key is delegation. All right, your reach is expanded when you delegate. All right, next is details in need of increased oversight. All right, we're able to, these are things that we can delegate. Details that are in need of increased oversight. If I need something to have more attention given to it, then I can delegate and have somebody to oversee that. In the book of Acts, the care for the widows is being neglected. Right? And the solution, again, the preachers didn't do that. What did they do? They delegated somebody because they realized that needs more attention than what it's getting right now. So the answer is not me doing it. The answer is delegation. All right? Next is an area where a leader is weak, but maybe somebody else is strong. To me, this is huge, because so many times we frustrate ourselves by trying to do things that are not our strength, when all we have to do, here's a good book recommendation. It's called Who Not What, or Who Not How. I'm sorry, Who Not How. That's the title of the book. I'd have to look it up. I'll look it up later who it's by, but it's a tremendous book. It just talks about delegating. It talks about knowing the right person to talk to in an area that you're not strong. All right? For example, for me, I have zero administrative skills. I've already told you I'm not creative. I can't sing. I can't, right? And I don't, you guys are like, what do you do? Not much. I got one lane and I stick on it. All right? I preach and I love leadership. That's my lane and I stick to it. Administrative stuff, I don't even try to do it. I get other people involved in that. All right? Step two, after I've identified what should I delegate, next step is clarify. All right? Now that I know the responsibility that I want to delegate, I need to get clear on the details of what I'm delegating. So this is internally. Before I ever approach anybody to ask them to do it, I need to get clear myself. Anybody ever had somebody to ask you to do something and you left more confused than before they started? I have no clue what you're asking me to do right now. because they skip this step. You got to get clear internally before you ask them. First of all, is there a deadline? I don't know how much of that I put on your page. Is that in there? All right. What resources will be needed? All right, these are important things to consider before I approach somebody. Who will the delegate answer to? All right. Who will answer to them? What does the goal being successfully if you do this right that I'm asking you to do, here's what it's going to look like when you've done it. This is how you're going to know it's been done right. All right. Step 3 is identify the who. Again, a lot of people, this is one. They just say, I want to delegate something to this person. I don't know what I want to give them to do. I don't know the details of what it is. I just want to give that person something to do. And we go and give them, but we haven't thought through these steps. This should be the third step, is the who. Put thought into this and have a reason for your selection. And there can be multiple reasons for this. First of all, I can delegate to somebody because I want to develop them. All right? Avery is 9, right? And because he's related to Andy Ferguson, he's probably got more musical ability than I could ever have. But at 9, there probably are other keyboardists that are maybe a little better than Avery right now, right? But we're not having Avery up there right now because he's the best keyboardist. We're doing that because we want to develop him, because we see the potential that in a few years, right, we all know what's coming, right? Just, again, it's Andy Ferguson's son. We know it's getting ready to happen. But we want to develop. We're not getting our children involved in ministry at 8 and 9 years old because they're better than the adults that are up. No, we're doing it because we want to develop them. All right, the second reason that we develop or that we delegate to somebody is because we trust them. All right, they have demonstrated reliability. I delegate to somebody because I know that I can trust them. Thirdly, I delegate to somebody because they have experience. Right? They have a demonstrated competence. So delegating an important task or role to a poor performer in hopes, and I'm a repeat offender in this one, but delegating to somebody who is a poor performer in hopes that maybe if I give them this, maybe they'll surprise me and now they'll come through. Anybody ever been bit by that one? I'm the only one. I got real lonely in here, right? Because you're wanting to boost somebody, but they've let you down time after. You got to see something from them before you delegate to them, all right? Fourth, confirm interest level. Do you even want to do this? That's a really good question to ask before you just walk off and you gave it to them. And inside they're like, I don't want to do this. They have no desire. So get some idea. Get some idea from them. Do they want? Now, I'm not, if they're already agreed to that role and that responsibility, that's what I'm talking about. Somebody you're trying to delegate to take something off of your plate, and they don't have any interest in it at all. You're set up to fail. All right, step 5, outline responsibility, authority, and empowerment. All right, they need to know how much authority do they have, what decisions can they make on their own without having to come back and ask you for permission. What you need to empower them to fulfill the role that you've given to them. All right, there are some questions there that I think to maybe give you some more skeletal framework there. And then step 6, establish benchmarks. This, to me, if there's any of them that we should circle, it would be this one. All right, delegating a task. I said, by March 30th, is there 30? Yeah, I think there's 31 days in March, right? By March 30th, I want the sanctuary painted. And the next time you walk into the sanctuary to see if it's painted is March 30th, that's a terrible idea. All right? A better way to do it is by March 7th, I want this whole, this side painted. By March 14th, I want to see that side. And we're checking incrementally. We're incrementally checking back to make sure that things are being done. That keeps us from walking in the last day. Right? We invited the mayor of town to come walk into our service. And the first time we walk in is with the mayor, and we walk in and like half of one wall is painted. All right? And, then the egg is on our face. So setting incremental check-ins, making sure that things are being done. All right? List out those benchmark dates, what you want to be completed, how you want to follow up. All right? So I'm going to email you. I want you to email me every Friday and give me an update. And there is a thin line here. We don't want to become micromanagers. We do want to trust people to do what we've asked them to do. But there is a difference between micromanaging and making sure that there is progress being done. All right? And then the last step is give credit. All right? Give credit. And there's two sides to that coin. Take blame. Because when we delegate to somebody, when we delegate to them, the buck still stops with us. Right? When I gave you the responsibility, when I delegate to you, right, I would love it, if let's just say that I hadn't got that phone call today telling me that our church was about to be auctioned off. And next Friday I get a phone call, hey, your church has been sold. All right? I can't blame that. That's on me. All right? The church board isn't going to be like, oh, that's not your fault. No, I don't even want to think of how that conversation would have gone. That was on me. All right? And here's the principle is this. When things go well, you did it. When things go bad, as a leader, I did it. All right? Take responsibility. Now, that doesn't mean I delegated to you and you messed up. Yes, publicly, I take the blame, but we're going to have some private conversations, right? But publicly, I take the blame. But when things go well, make sure we give credit to people. Let them know you did a great job. What does that do? That gives them confidence. And that gives them confidence. And next time when you ask them to do, they're going to give you not just 100%, they're going to give you 110%. All right, so delegating is, I think, a very important part that I think many great leaders don't delegate very well. And I think it's one that we can work on to learn to delegate even better. So any questions about delegation? Either I'm the best teacher in the world, which I know is not the case. All right. No, seriously, if there's questions about how does this apply to church? How does this apply to teams that we lead? All right. I don't want this to just be tonight, an hour, I push through all this leadership theory, and tomorrow I do it again, and you walk out of here with just regurgitated John Maxwell stuff. That's not what I want. I want it to be things that you guys say, you know what, this is going to help me now to lead more effectively. All right, so if there are questions, I know I told you, and I did, I'm 2 minutes early. All right, I told you I'd be 8 o'clock, I think was my deal when I was supposed to be done. I did it. So we have 2 minutes for questions.
What do you think are some healthy ways to give people credit that you're leading? What are some healthy ways that will build their confidence but also leave you with a very healthy relationship?
I think one thing, everybody likes to be recognized, and I think public recognition. So our church sign got finished, and so in front of the church on a Sunday, you can't do that with everything, but our church sign was finished, and so the guy in our church who had been over that project, I thanked him on a Sunday morning in front of the whole church. So I think people love public recognition. Tomorrow, I'm going to share kind of the end of it, of tomorrow. I'm going to share a process that we've used. So 10 years ago, I had a church consultant come in, and one of the things he did was set up a system of communication for us as a church. And over the last 10 years, we've tweaked it. And I'm going to share with tomorrow what we do, not saying you have to do it. You may already have a system in place. I don't know what you have. So the last thing I want is to walk in here and act like I'm a know-it-all, some mega church pastor. We're not. We're a church of about 200 who's been a church of 200 for a while. So it's not like we're a mega church that's we got all the answers. That's not it. I just want to share with you some things that we've done, and then you guys can take or leave what you want. But one thing that we do for that is once a quarter we have what we call all hands, and we do it on the fifth Wednesday. So there's 4 fifth Wednesdays in the year, and they spread out pretty nicely. And what we do is it's just a fun night. We come together, we do door prizes. We give away about $300 worth of door prizes, like foot-long Kit Kats and stuff. So starts off, we pray together for about a half hour so it's all of our volunteers, whether they're Sunday school teacher, usher, hostess, it doesn't matter. We invite everybody to come, and it's, more of a casual atmosphere. People aren't dressed for church. It's more casual. And when they come in, they get kind of a raffle ticket. I'm not talking about gambling. So, but anyway, they get the little ticket, and then we call out the number, and if they get it, they win a prize. And then I do a little bit of training. And then I honor we call them system directors, department heads. I honor the system director of the quarter, and I give them a card and a gift basket that we put together. And then each one of them come, and they honor somebody from within their department who has excelled, and they give them a card and a $25 gift card to some place there's a process that goes into that, but people love it. I mean, they eat it up. Like they won the door prizes. They love that. And then being recognized publicly, it's, I think, a $25 gift card, so it's not a huge thing. But when we started doing that, we saw a big uptick in momentum, I'd say. Yeah, we're working to, honestly, we had gotten to a place where it was kind of just like, okay, they were last time, so let's go to them. Not the best way to do it. My wife was like, what are you doing? This is where my wife really dinged me on that one. She's like, this is, counterproductive what you're doing. But I think the excuse I use is because all of them are performing at such a high level, I could have chosen any of them. I'm working to put more of a criteria in place, like the form. So they have forms they have to turn in once, I think it's once a quarter. They have forms they have to turn in and planning sheets that need to be turned in. And if they do all that on time, that's going to figure into the criteria for it. What's that? I never win. Yes.
Do you consider inspecting what you expect micromanagement or good leadership?
I think it's good leadership. Yeah. I think again with everything, it's, there is a line there. I think if you're inspecting every.
I'm talking about for us that are volunteering in positions. You get people to work under you.
Yeah.
And you kind of lay out what your plan is and what you'd like to see you do. I'm not a micromanager at all.
Yeah.
At the same time, I feel like that there's a value in, making sure everybody's
Yeah.
doing what they need to be doing. That way, we can see if it's being done properly. And I think that maybe
Absolutely. Yeah.
it would help us to report.
Yes. I think what we don't inspect eventually is going to break down, so we have to inspect it. Any other questions?
You can tell we're family, can't you? Can you do some training on how to deal with family dynamics?
Well, I had family in my church and they all left, so obviously I didn't do it too well.
See, we stuck it out.
Sounds to me like Pastor Grizzle might be able to teach on that one.
Get up there and say, oh, I think some preachers can't have churches that have families.
Yeah, wow.
Families.
Yeah. I feel the love. I feel the love. It's an undercurrent, but it's there. All right. So tomorrow, I think we're going to try to get my wife, because again, her session is way more fun than mine. She's a more fun person than I am. My daughters tell me that too. And then I just want to kind of share with you. So tonight we talked a little bit about communication. There is a lesson in there on expectation. I'll probably touch on that tomorrow. But I do want to talk, because there is a difference between communication and a system of communication. And in order to have a system of communication, there are principles that can play into that. And then I'm just going to kind of share with you what we do. And again, not saying it's the best way to do it or the right way to do it even, just saying it's a way to do it. And if there's one or two things that we do that you want to take it and make it your own, you can. If you say, well, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, and let's do the opposite of it, you can do that too. Okay, but I'm just going to, because it has worked for us, and we have a great team of leaders, and I'm very honored to be able to lead them. Andy, you want to come, or Heather, or Pastor Grizzle, or? All right.
We'll delegate it.
That's what they always say. We'll let Pastor do it.
He gets to do the hard work. Wow.
Thank you. I really enjoyed that, and hopefully everybody online got to see it and enjoy it. I think it's 10:30 tomorrow, the next session, so everybody tune in at 10:30 tomorrow, and we'll go at it. Breakfast in the morning. If you want to come early, we'll give you more than 30 minutes of coming to eat, as Heather did. I'll give you 45. Okay. Thank you. God bless.